Here we are.
Hi.
Welcome to another edition of Thought Leaders Live, where we talk with thought leaders in business life and all points in between. Happy to welcome an old buddy of mine, Tony Veroeven, to the show. Tony, Chief Revenue Officer at Milieu Gravity.
Milieu.
Tony, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's Black Shirt Day, Greg. Thanks for sending me the memo.
I think this is like a dark teal.
Oh, okay.
If I look at the tag.
We already established that my color is off of my camera, so.
It's a little bit. Kind of like the color, black and white. We're giving people the option here. You can go like TCM Classic with Tony or, Technicolor with me. But hey, listen, enough of these comedy jokes. Let's jump right into the topic at hand, how to build an online marketplace with Gravity. Now, you first started talking to me. We're at an AMA meeting a few weeks back, and I thought, wow, this is really intriguing stuff, what you're doing, especially with how big third-party sites are for SEO. My, SEO and AEO, that radar went up for me. So can't wait to talk about this. Why don't we start out, though, Tony, with you telling us a little bit about yourself, your personal background, business background, and what you're doing now for Milieu.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have let me just bring up a slide. Can I bring up my slides okay here? We'll do that.
Is this like a vacation you took to Yellowstone, or what are we talking about?
No, I just got a couple slides I'm going to go through here.
Okay.
Screen.
Movies, great. Yeah, I think you got to, you knock your camera again.
I got to see. I got my camera's right in the middle of my screen. There we go.
Okay, here we go.
Are we good? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's my background. There's my fancy picture. So I've got a 20-year career in sales and marketing and 10 years in nonprofits and association leadership. So I was an executive director, VP of membership, community manager, online community manager. I've led like a lot of technology upgrades and database onboarding and new websites and actually online communities. And so I've led the launch of dozens of those. And actually one that you'll see today is one that generates $200,000 of annual revenue for the association. So I just like to say, in all short, I help industries build directories that guide decisions. So that's just a little bit about me. There's, you don't want to get onto the nuts and the bolts. There's more, but that's enough. What we got time for today.
And now, are you the guy climbing, or are you the guy extending the hand?
I'm helping pull you up.
Oh,
yeah. I'm already at the top of the mountain, Greg.
Yeah. Yeah, what happened to your hand there? It looks like you.
It's AI generated. We know AI doesn't do fingers right. So.
Okay, cool. Should I keep the slides up, or are there more slides to come?
Yeah, I've got a couple slides. We can kind of do this, and feel free to. This is a conversation, but I've just got some ideas that I wanted to kind of lay down here and help guide our thoughts.
Okay, so I think before and I don't know if this is the next slide, but to me, I think I'd like you to take a step back and tell us a little bit about the directory market and who you're serving and who would want a directory and how look at that.
Look at that. So that's a great question. Okay. So directories, when you think about a directory, like, well, do I have a directory? If you've got a online community, if you've got a knowledge base, of PDFs and content and, PowerPoints, if you've got a buyer's guide, if you've got a directory of members, if you've got a Shopify cart, right? These are all kind of directories of people, things, and content. In a lot of cases, these are built as silos. If you're an association, the association, will have an online community and they'll say, here, go talk here. Then they'll have here's all of our standards and content that we've created over 50 years. Go here if you want to search it. And then we've got our members directory. Oh, and then here's our, non-dues revenue monetized, pay as you go or pay to participate buyer's guide. Sometimes these are 4 different things. if you're a person that runs a business, right, and maybe you've over time built a community, maybe you're an outfitter for doing river rafting or camping and stuff like that. Well, do you want people just to come shop and make a determination on whether to use you, or do you want to have maybe content about rafting and gear and places to go? And that's just one example, right? And so there's an opportunity to build a place where people can come and make a decision. And really kind of the state of the market right now is that people have accidentally segregated all of the best stuff from each other. And you see this in Facebook groups, you see this in Reddit, you'll see this in white labeled communities as well.
Well, why the separation? Because when you were going through that list, I'm thinking software applications like a content management system for your website, right? E-commerce application. These are all different applications. What you're telling me is what you folks do is bring it all together in one platform. And I guess I'm wondering, do WordPress and people like that have these as add-ons too, or how are you guys different?
Yeah, certainly as a word. So this, what I'm really talking about is a strategy, not necessarily infrastructure. You could have all the right infrastructure, and I think that's when we talk about things in 4 different places. An association or as someone who is trying to build like an industry guide. You see this a lot with an association that has like a trade publication in the space, right? They're a for-profit, they sell advertising, they have an editorial, they've got a directory of content. And again, you'll see sort of this stuff kind of in separate places. And that's the problem, is that they've got all the infrastructure, but if you brought it all in one place, now you've really got something. You've got something that we'll talk about in a second, is gravity. What does that mean?
Okay. All right. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no.
Let's
this is part of the conversation. So interrupt and let's have a conversation.
All right.
So the gravity. So this is when we talk about the gravity principle. So let's say you have big football field or a big room and it's bare, or maybe there's some chairs over on one side and a bunch of toys or games or food or whatever, and you get a bunch of either adults or toddlers, or sometimes adults are toddlers, but if you've got a bunch of people in there, a bunch of kids in a room, and you say, hey kids, here's a bunch of chairs and furniture, talk and play here. And then you bunch of toys on the other side. Where are the kids going to go? Right? I think their kids are going to go play with the toys, and whether there's furniture or structure or not. And then the kids are going to, they're going to develop their own rules and play, and that forming, storming, norming sort of things that happens in ad hoc groups. And so that's kind of what we say is gravity. Means where the community and gravity appear where the resources are, right? Why do towns build up around a river or around resources, or the company town? Why did those places come up? And that's the idea behind the gravity principle, is that people will go where the resources are, not necessarily where you say, hey, go talk here. Let's have a conversation.
Okay. It's like, you brings to mind the art design, the architectural design. It's like somebody's got a sidewalk laid down, and then they got the worn path through the grass, where people actually go. But some variation on that. But I get what you're saying. Go where the resources are.
I think that's an upgrade for slide deck version number 2 is the picture of that. Yeah.
No, I like what you're saying though. But I mean, that's more like navigation. You're saying, where do people come together?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's the same idea, right? It's human behavior is what we're really talking about. All right, so the problem in practice, what does this mean, right? And so we've got 4 different platforms or 4 different websites with sort of similar issues, right? A buyer's guide. We've probably seen these, right? You see a profile, and you might even like, oh, hey, go upgrade your profile. You get a bigger logo. You get a link to your website. Here is the email info at or sales at abc.com. And then you go to their website, and then you have to, there's one place that you can compare, right? And so how do you make a decision? You just go off into another place where, there was an opportunity. A community forum, right? We've seen the old listserv forums, or the place where you can have, even a Facebook group. There's posts, there's pictures, but other than Facebook, which we know is addictive, is really nothing pulling you in. And sometimes these can atrophy over time, especially if they're not well curated. And there's a master gardener sort of pruning and taking care of it. A resource hub, right? You might have just a pile of videos and case studies and PDFs, but where's the guide in all of that? Where's the person saying, here, this person wrote this, and if you want to learn more about this, go talk to this person, right? It's just a pile of, it's a resource knowledge base, as we've seen these. And then another example, and there's lots of other examples, but another example is like an academic program guide. So I think, like, Greg, you've got, you've had college age kids. I think he's out of that now, right? When some of us have college age kids, and so they're like, where do I go to school, or where do I do my master's program, or where do I do my postdoc sort of program or doctor program? It's the same sort of thing as a buyer's guide. How do you make a decision? Is my GPA good enough? What does this cost? Am I going to like it in this city that I have to move to? A lot of these sites will it's a list. And actually, sometimes it's just a spreadsheet, which is very terrible experience. Yeah. And it just drop you off into, the university's page. And again, how do, if I'm a student, how do I make a determination about where I want to go? There's no reason to stay there. You're just kind of like a passerby in there. So these are infrastructure, but none of them give you a reason to stay there. And there's no influence on making a decision. So they probably go somewhere else.
Okay.
So let's give an example, right? So a buyer's guide. All right. So I'm going to pick on Google. This is, if you go to Google and search for Google SEO or ad partners, you're going to see this. Google has 3,300 partners. So these are like agencies, right? So they can, and these are premier partners. And so there's 3,300 of these that will help you with Google AdWords and, search and help you spend your money, right? And so what I did just this morning, I built this slide, and I filtered US and every single filter I could. And look what I'm left with. 270 in the US. I don't see any place where I can search by Wisconsin if I want to work for anybody local. How do I do that? And then why should this is alphabetical. So why should I pick Acadia versus Accelerated Digital Media? There's no story. They're not offered the way to do a story here. So I'm going to let's look, if we click on Acadia, where's the value proposition? Okay, well, they're qualified like 269 other people in the United States. But why should I talk to these guys versus anybody else, right? So I can click their website, but again, now what, I got to build my own website? I got to build my own spreadsheet. So I guess how do I compare and how do I make a decision on this? This you see the theme.
Okay.
Here's another example. The National Gardening Association. We're like an old-timey forum, right? But these are still out there, as you can see, right? But this could be just like a Google, or this could be like a Facebook group, right? The idea is the same, right? People go there, post pictures. I'm sure the National Gardening Association has an annual convention. They probably have a database of plants. They probably have a database of hybridizers that cross genetics and things like that. But how do the people that are experts in this rise above all of that? How do they democratize, besides just posting a lot, right? How do they show, hey, I've got these plants I want to sell you, or I've got the best practices on how to keep aphids out of your garden, or whatever, right? So it's just a place to go, but will they keep going there? We don't know. And then stop me anytime if you got any questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you know there was a PDF association?
Of course. Who doesn't know there's a PDF? No, I did
There's
not.
a PDF association. Okay. No judgments. Everybody's a nerd for something. I'm a nerd for hiking and backcountry camping and Scoutmaster and all this sort of stuff, right? There are nerds for everything. And, there's probably some committee, 40 years ago or whatever, that wrote what a PDF was, right? And so we could create a PDF file, which is made up of layers and code and all sorts of stuff, right? Well, so there's a resource library of PDFs on here. Of course, they're made up of PDFs. And so you can learn like what PDF structured. And so there's resources here, there's topics, there's working groups. But look at they're all separate, right? The events, the news, the working groups, the membership, it's all separate. So what if I wanted to say like, oh, who wrote this metadata structures in PDF author? Who wrote that? I want to learn more about the best practices of this. I have no idea who does, except I had to click into it, find it. But what if like that person could publish content from this website? And the final thing is here. This is an idea like, okay, I'm going to choose a directory, or I'm going to choose a program, right? A doctoral program. And look what my options are. Like I can choose some sort of accreditation that there might be, what degree type I want. And then if I go there, then I see, the same sort of flat profile, University of South Carolina, blah, blah, blah. And why do I choose that versus anybody else? So this is kind of what our options are out there.
Okay, so Tony, I'm sick of you coming on this show and just criticizing everybody. Would you give us a solution to these horrible problems?
I will certainly try. Okay, so here's an idea, right? And when I say transform static directories, I kind of mean marketplaces. I mean, a lot of these are synonyms for the same thing. This could just be your website, right? If you're trying to get someone to make a decision and choose you, can you make it a place where they want to come back, right? And so there's kind of like this step where you're like, okay, organize all the context and knowledge and make it findable. And then you can go niche, right? We know that you're like, oh, I want to get large amounts of customer and not be too niche because I want to be general because I don't want to miss anything, right? But I think like Google and search engines and now AI have proven that, you're going to be found if your stuff is good and it's specific. And so specificity is kind of the big thing here. And layer in the knowledge, right? So we're starting with context and community, and we layer in the knowledge. And then we allow participants in the organizations, companies and subject matter experts and people with tacit knowledge to share their knowledge through this community attached to this content that they authored, case studies and brochures and videos. And it all feeds maybe into a feed and on their profile. And now this becomes a place that is irresistible. It's what we talk about creating gravity. If one person runs a website and publishes one blog article a day, right? And that's going to do well because over time, you're going to create an organic thing Greg, you've got tons of articles on here, right? So your site is all talking about, content marketing and how to get manufacturers to gain attention and create a digital twin, right? That's kind of what we're talking about here. But now we're talking about it times however many members or people are on the site. What if you have 100 schools or universities publishing about their program? You're going to create a site that a student can't ignore. It's going and that AEO and SEO and Google can't ignore. So that's what we're doing is we're layering everything kind of under one place and where you can't see separation.
As you're describing all this, Tony, I think of LinkedIn as a possible analogy of what you're talking about because, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that a good example? I mean, it's a directory. You've got your name, you've got stuff, you can load up resources. It's got a community and you can jump in and give links back to some of your resources you've added in. Is that along the lines of what you're talking about?
It's along those lines, but the problem with Facebook and LinkedIn is that it's about everything else, right? So how do you stand out and among all the different things, right? We all know like Jay Schwedelson is like a famous marketing guy, but there's like 500 other people that are also talking about marketing and how to do this and how to do that. And well, not 500, there's a million, right? Or however many people are on LinkedIn. There's a billion people on there. So how do you stand out? So that's where I'm saying is create a specific niche separate site, become this island in the ocean, because LinkedIn and Facebook is an ocean. So you've got to create a destination out there.
I see. Yeah, I meant I was
Yes,
using that as example for structure.
it's a directory. Yeah, it's a directory of people, right? And so, and of course, it has groups and pages and things like that as well.
Okay.
So how do we, this is the litmus test. How do we know if your site is, looks like, column or silo, you remove all the logos. Does it look like this, from a figurative speech or a figurative standpoint example, or is it this some sort of like tacit knowledge hairball of knowledge where you can't just replicate it overnight by just putting up a shingle, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're going after. And this, again, a community forms where the resources are, and the resources are people and what they generate and their knowledge, right? And so remember the old story about the engineer, and he charges $10,000, and the guy's like, why did you charge me $10,000 to fix this engine? All you did was tap it with a hammer. And he's like, I charged you $999,000 or 99, charged you $9,999 because I knew where to hit the hammer.
Just saw it this morning.
Yeah, an old parable, right? I wish it probably is true, but it is sort of like, that's why you charge what you charge in your industry, because it's worth it, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about, what does this look like for real? So here's a few examples. We've got a program directory, we've got a career explorer, we've got a buyer's guide. Okay. So this is the physical therapy. This is called PT-CAS. This is where you can show students what it's like to go to your school, right? And so this is the part where we talk about democratizing, right? Medical University of South Carolina. Do I go there versus University of Pennsylvania or any other school? I don't know, but I can click on this, something that they shared. I can go to their little microsite and get a feel of like, oh, what a beautiful campus. And now I can click and I can, click 5 different schools and compare, like, okay, here's what it costs. Here's what my MCATs need to be to get in to this. What does my GPA need to be? And so it's serving the student to make a better decision, and they can make a decision on here before they submit their application to all these different schools. But it also allows the smaller, maybe less noticed schools that may not have the biggest budget than, maybe a big SEC school, to democratize. And so if they post and they comment, you're democratizing the industry to say, hey, I'm going to get noticed too by posting on this website, which is bringing people to the industry.
And whose site is this? Whose directory?
This is the American Physical Therapy Association.
Okay.
Right. And so like a lot of associations like that will have member programs that they serve, and they'll have like a centralized application service. So like here in Wisconsin, you can fill out one application and apply to every single state school in Wisconsin without, going to 10 different forms. And that's kind of, now you can do that across in an industry. I can apply to all these dental schools or physical therapy programs or social work programs all at once. That's called a CAS, or a centralized application system.
Okay. Well, and I would think too, even just jumping back to the marketing standpoint for answer engine optimization, like, the learned language models are all about comparisons now. And if you're an association, you're doing your members a favor, or by providing this, because if, these AI wants to find the great spot where all the information is in one place and it's nicely organized for them. So if they can draw from this, and you can tell your members, hey, listen, you want to really tell your story and you want AI to find you, this seems like a great solution.
100%. Yeah, you have to play both sides, right? You have to, generate for people. We used to say, like, do you write this article for the robot or the person? And the answer is yes. And now you have to write it for the robot that is AI. That's, hopefully will find your content. I know you, Greg, you've talked about that quite a bit as well. Here's a career explorer, right? We don't have enough engineers. I think engineers make the world go round and create and make things, processes happen. And so this is aimed at middle schoolers to develop their interest in engineering. And so here's a kind of a Quora style functionality where they can anonymously ask a question, and then all these engineers, now it's a directory of engineers, right? It's director of people and their expertise, and they can come in and answer the questions. So questions in here are like, will AI replace engineers? What sort of math do I need to know? How do I become an engineer? I'm a junior and I haven't taken any algebra class. Can I still become an engineer? Right. And so this is like almost ad hoc mentoring in exploration of a career.
Love it.
Super cool. And then this is my kind of one dear to my heart. This is the buyer's guide I actually ran when I was in association management. So to me, this is kind of the granddaddy of all examples, right? We've got a buyer's guide. We've got to find a company functionality. We've got interviews with those people and their tacit knowledge. There's a podcast even on these. There's a community feed of all the people sharing their content, their brochures, their case studies, their videos and expertise, all feeds up into a community feed. And so, and if you want to ask a question, you can go to the community answers, which is sort of like a Quora sort of style, public. I can see, everybody can sort of see it sort of question. So then everybody can say like, oh, I don't feel dumb asking a question because I had the same thing.
Okay.
As this. So, and again, this is monetizable. People can have, the organization, whoever's running this, can have upgraded profiles and advertising and sell, access to this. But I think just because you have the biggest logo on here, I think that's the next slide here coming up here. Just because you're a big brand and have a big logo doesn't mean you win the traffic game, right? You can be a small brand or a small subject matter expert and post great content and great be a great image there and still kind of win the traffic and the knowledge game, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And so the best story was going to win. Again, I keep talking about like democratizing that, right? And so just because the big supplier buys the ad and buys the big sort of profile doesn't mean they're always going to get the most attention.
Okay.
So who's going to do that? This is where it's kind of gets a little scary out there, because if you're an association or your site is, got a lot, if your industry has a lot of competition out there, if you don't do this, somebody else will. And so what we're seeing a lot in associations, especially in like these academic profiles, if they've just got a list of logos and links off to somebody else's website, what you're also seeing now is a third-party for-profit site building a huge site of all disciplines: dentistry, social work, physical therapy, engineering, right? And so it's a huge, massive site that is in competition with all these associations in each of these fields with better experiences, better UX, better UI. And so I kind of say like, oh, they're eating your lunch. You've got to be, thinking ahead and be strategic about building the site that people want to go and want to stay. The association, in a field should be kind of like the place that people think about. And if you're not, then they'll go elsewhere. And so is this for association? Is this message for associations? Yes. But it's also for like, if you're a disruptor in the industry, this is for you to think about to be competitive in your industry.
I mean, and a third party could use this too if they want to eat the association's lunch. I mean, hey,
I will answer the phone call if you email me. All right, we hit the mark. 12 on the dot. So any questions, comments, throw tomatoes at me. I'll take it all.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Tony. I appreciate you coming on. Um, I think that's really exciting stuff that you're bringing it all together. And yeah, I mean, like you said, either the associations got to jump on this or these third parties. But I do think there's tons of applications for this out there and exciting stuff. So
Yeah, we're even seeing like venture capital and investors doing this, right? They're going to go
sure.
in and they were like, we're going to enter this industry. And so that's even happening out there where they'll go in and buy a trade publication, right? And build these up. So there's all sorts of like applications of this.
Oh, exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Tony, thanks for coming on the show.
I
Appreciate
appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah. And there's Tony's contact. He's on LinkedIn, so if you want to get a hold of him, do that there. And thank you also to everyone who joined us today in another edition.